I know that you've talked about aging peaks. So when do we have these aging peaks throughout our lives?
Yeah. So I've always said this to patients, and I feel like I got like, what's that word I'm looking for? This year, I feel like I got validated, But if dermatologists are good for anything, it's observing trends, right? Like we see patterns, we see trends. And when you see like over 100 cosmetic patients a week, every single week for the past like almost decade, right? You start to realize things faster. And I've noticed anecdotally in my practice, 4 peaks of aging. All right. And I'll tell you how I got validated this year. But the first peak, I think, happens in your late 20s, early 30s, where there is a shift over the course of 6 months and your face doesn't quite look like it used to look. And you start to notice like a slight flattening on the lateral edges of your face, and you start feeling like you're dropping a tiny bit. And then you notice a second peak in your late 30s to early 40s, where over the course of a month, you're like, what the hell happened? Why do I have jowls? Why is my neck doing this soft thing that it never used to do? And I've heard women and men come in, more so women, come into my practice really like terrified by that 1 month period. Then there's the third peak, which happens in your mid 40s, 44, 45, where they come in and they say, overnight, I wake up and I don't recognize myself. And they go into panic mode. And then there's a fourth peak, but people don't really talk about it because at that point you've kind of accepted your aging process. It's in like your late 50s where you feel like something is completely shifting again. But that's usually accepted, right? And this past year, there was a study that came out where they have shown scientifically that there's 2 times in your life, so 2 out of the 4 peaks. Eventually, science will catch up to my theory, I think.
You're ahead of the curve.
I think so. That at 44 and at 60, you have massive increases in the aging process. Like your body kind of deteriorates at 44 and then at 60. So that has been scientifically proven, and that came out this year. But I do think there's 2 peaks prior. And I do think that in the past, prior to social, we didn't really notice that first peak because we're young. I mean, 28, 29, 30, 32, even 38 is young, right? But you're younger and it's not normal to be staring at yourself that often. So you have to be very strong mentally to be able to accept it and not have it take a mental toll. And it happens to the best of us where it takes a mental toll. But because people are looking at themselves more, they're noticing it more. And so they're much more attuned to the shifts that are happening in their faces. And that first peak does happen in your late 20s, early 30s. But it's a slower progression. And then it happens faster and faster and faster as you get wiser.
Dun, dun, dun.
But it's
like, oh God,
this is
44.
honestly, like, I'll tell you, like I did a TikTok once on that. And the amount of like Gen Z hate comments.
Oh my God. Gen Z thinks they're never going to age, first of all.
Gen Z has beef with themselves about having beef with us, but that's a separate issue. But my point is never to fearmonger. I'm not here to tell you, oh my God, you have to come and do all. No. I think if you are aware of what is going to happen, it makes it much more realistic in terms of you approaching the aging process. And it makes you more open to figuring out how you want to age. Because I think the biggest issue that happens, especially in younger people, is that they are aging in the now. And they are preventing the aging in the now without looking at their face and how they're aging with a long-term view. It's like a pen. There's a beginning and an end. It's a road with a beginning, and there's going to be an end for all of us. But if you look at this road just as a never-ending road, you're not having that forward-thinking thought process of how am I going to age into my face? And that is when you end up looking weird and unlike yourself down the road. So if you want to hold on to who you are, you should be thinking of that road as a beginning and an end so that you can time things for yourselves as you're aging. And it's kind of a morbid way to look at it, but it's the most realistic way to look at it without you getting lost in the forest.
I love that. Yeah. And I was thinking as you were talking that it is very realistic. But I think that the problem that a lot of people encounter with this is that we want instant gratification and we're only thinking about the now, especially when people are younger. They want the lips now. They want to prevent the wrinkles now. Like I know so many girls in their early 20s getting full face Botox every few months. And I'm like, what? I mean, I get the preventative aspect of it at a certain point. I did it for 10 years, 28 to 38, and it did prevent me from having static lines. And I loved your video about like, I look like I have Botox, even though I don't, because I do Botox. Like, we don't have to be doing it at the cadence that we're doing it.
You don't have to do it at the cadence that you're doing it.
Yeah.
And that's like the other thing. It's, again, because you're looking at that aging process as a beginning and an end. I'm not taking it as, oh my God, my movement's back, I need my Botox. I let my movement fully come back. I usually don't Botox myself more than twice a year. So by month 3, movement's already kind of back. By month 5, I'm like a full-on, like, what's that dog, Sharpay, whatever, so, you know what I mean? Like, I'm like fully moving and mobile, like too much. But I let it come back because you want your muscle memory to come back. You don't want to lose sense of your face. And if you keep yourself flat starting at 22, what's going to happen when you're 40? Your eyebrows are going to be hitting your eyelashes. You're going to have zero muscle mass. It's going to just thin out everything. And so it's not the sexy answer that people want to hear because they want to hear that there's like a miracle potion, lotion, cure. But I think it's the most natural way to age the best for your face, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I feel like people just want the sexy, the thing.
I know.
But
we were talking about that before we started. Like, we're both, like, you're 38, 39. I'm 40. And we both feel like we're so much older, even though we feel like we're 17 in our heads, but we've lived so much life. Yeah. But they don't realize it at 20, 22, not to sound like patronizing. You don't realize it when you're that young. Mm-hmm. But as you get older, you realize, why was I in such a rush? Why was I in such a rush to prevent this aging process, which is a privilege? But also, it's not like it was going to prevent every single line from ever forming. Mm-hmm. So I feel like people have to take a step back.
Yeah.